And we are live. A glorious good afternoon to each and every one of you. Welcome to We the People. We come to you each and every Thursday in the 2 o'clock hour just to remind you that you have power and say so in government. Malcolm X once said, education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Government and how it works on every level, federal, state, local, and municipal, impacts you 24/7, 365. So we have got to get smarter about it. I'm your host, Angela Taylor, and I'm here with my absolute favorite millennial, Michaela McCrae. I call her Eminem because she can withstand the heat. She doesn't melt. And we do have two guests in studio, but as usual, we have some PSAs to put out there before we start our show. And the first one, wait a minute, where's it? Yeah, I done messed up. And don't, there it is. Give me a minute, folks. Excuse the old folks. We have a special election coming up on August the 6th. And as you know, last week we focused on one of the candidates, Gabrielle Ginnenbott, and we do have two candidates in studio, Miss Tamara Davis Brown and Miss Angela Angel. And in my estimation, because I went to a forum the other day, we had some no-shows, but of the 6 folks that showed up, these 2 ladies kicked butt hand over fist. They did. So we have the best of the best in studio, and there will be some more forums coming up because we do have that special election. And I had the paper here. Give me a minute. Here it is. So that you can get firsthand information from the horse's mouth beyond today on Thursday, tonight at 7 o'clock at the Collington at 10450 Lotsford Road in Mitchellville. They're having another candidate forum. And on Saturday, oh, wait a minute, it starts at 7 o'clock. That's the one for tonight. And on Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning, I won't be there, Reed Temple AME Church at 11400 Glendale Boulevard is sponsoring one as well. So, and just as an aside, I reached out to the NAACP, who is supposed to be co-sponsoring that event, and haven't heard back from them because I wanted to know if we could, send questions to them. So I haven't heard back from them. So to me, that's telling. Anytime anybody can't give you the courtesy of a response, that's very high. That's number one on my litmus. But at any rate, I also wanted to make a comment about all of the fraganagle that's going across the internet. If you all will recall, in 2016 and in 2020, troll farms, Russian troll farms, put pictures of police beating up black people and just kind of took up all of the dialogue on the internet with fake information, with bad information. You guys need to be careful of that. You also need to be careful of pointing the finger or tearing down one of our own, if you will, because we are notorious for doing that. I don't understand why, but Michaela McCrae had made some very good points on that when we had earlier discussion, and I think that she can communicate them a lot better than I could. So, Michaela, the mic is yours.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Can you repeat?
Mm-hmm.
Can you repeat the question?
Mm-hmm. No, because you have the millennial page. You have a lot of millennials responding on your page.
Right.
And you had shared some of the comments that they were making as related to Kamala Harris.
Right.
And I just need you to share that with the audience, because I don't want us to take our eye off the ball. As we have been saying since Jesus was a baby, this election is about whether you want democracy, whether you want your voice, or whether you don't.
Yeah. So just pretty much where we are right now in America, I realize that a lot of people are not qualified or even equipped to converse about current political affairs, and a lot of the different perspectives that individuals are perpetuating are rooted in fallacies and opinions. And when you do begin to articulate any form of facts or knowledge, it's always physical and
misogynistic.
Yeah, attackings and I understand that a lot of people are very surface level. I get that, but how detrimental those,
opinions.
They're past opinions though, because
Okay.
opinions with the right amount of information you can change and alter. It's that's not what it's not they don't want to. They don't want to learn. They don't want to be informed. They want their opinion. I wouldn't say opinion. They want their narrative to be right. And I've learned that people will die on a hill to not be wrong. Their beliefs, right? It's definitely their beliefs of how they perceive people, just based off of their own assumptions. And with my generation currently, you have two different sides of it. You have half of the generation that's like, oh, we don't like either we didn't like Trump or Biden, right? And then you get a whole nother individual with a whole different platform, a whole different set of ideologies, and it's just like, well, we don't like this person either. And so then I'm like, okay, cool. I love for people to understand their own opinions and their own narratives. Then I ask, questions, and they're just like, well, what she did when she was the prosecutor, so when she did her job.
That's
right?
what
And
she did.
And I can argue it from A to Z. I'm very critical of all political parties on
Yes, you are. But continue.
across the narrative, which I think is very necessary, because oftentimes a lot of people, even when I was able to vote for the first time, I was in college, and we did all of the political analysts, the political analysis, through our broadband and all that stuff. It was a really great experience, but at that time it was between Trump and Hillary. And I remember the narrative being the exact same. And so then that's why I challenge people on my social media. I asked the question. I said, do we not like her because she's semi-black?
Or she's a woman.
And then everybody's like, well, she's getting the black vote, but she's not black. But you're not answering the question. What is really the reason why you do not like her?
Exactly.
And the reality of why
nobody can pinpoint it.
Well, no, it is. But it's something that a majority of American society has been able to escape actually articulating and saying. They hate women. It's very clear the hatred of women is where it is. And when I ask those probing questions, it's like, well, it doesn't have anything to do with her being a woman. But it has everything to do with her being a woman, because once, if you listen to somebody long enough, they'll begin to tell you how they really feel. And when they say things like, well, I don't think she's qualified to run this country. Well, what are the qualifications to run this country? And then when I ask those questions, well, I don't know. But then when I tell you...
Oh, what? They don't know it's cars, citizenship, age, and residency? They don't know that?
When I told you, majority of American people are not equipped to have the conversation on politics right now. So that's why I'm like, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to teach you. And then when I'm in the process of teaching, then that's when people realize, and they'll say, I had someone say, dang, like, you really know your facts. Like, I respect you, but it's not going to change my mind. Okay, that's good. And that's fine. Even though you're completely wrong. And so that's what I'm saying. People will die on the hill for their beliefs. And so, did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
You put some clarity out there.
Okay.
So, in other words, people, stop it.
Yeah.
It boils down to whether or not you want democracy, or do you want a proven felon with 91 felony counts who has butt effed the country to tell you that I'm going to take all the police off the street and put the military on the street.
Yeah.
I'm going to absolve anybody who shoots and kills anybody on my say-so. I want to kill my political enemies. He has said that.
Absolutely.
And I just don't understand y'all's logic, but I'm not going to try to understand it, because it's crazy.
Well, I have one other thing to say
Okay.
to go into that point.
Okay.
When it comes down to, I'm just going to say this as facts. We've had 45 presidents. And in those 45 that have been elected to the position, it has been an unspoken narrative for it to be white and a man. I mean, you can argue with your mom. You can argue with your mom about it. However, at the end of the day, majority of the presidents that we've had, they've been presidents because of lineage, you know, or they have bought into the presidency, you know, and when you study the different presidents. At no point in American history have we ever argued over race and gender until Obama. So for 8 years, we only argued about race. For the first time in American history, the narrative is now race and gender.
Yeah.
And those are the two main proponents that has destroyed American society. Okay. Relatively. And so that's really where we are right now with the election.
Okay, so with that,
jump in.
Okay, well, yeah, jump in before we get on this August 6th election.
Exactly. You know, it's one of the things that we talked about, that I've talked about in many.
Could you talk into the mic?
Exactly. Forgive me. I should know radio protocols. We talk about how we haven't been in this era before, but in fact, a lot of times, especially as Black folks, we have, right? And one of the things in 1964, Malcolm X gave the speech, "It's the ballot or the bullet," right? And in the ballot of the bullet, he says, "This threatens to be the most explosive year America has ever witnessed. Check how many folks are dying now at the hands of police and our folks of the state and white supremacy," right? They say it's also a political year. It's time now for you and me to become more politically mature and realize what the ballot is for, what we're supposed to get when we cast a ballot, and that when we don't cast a ballot, it's going to end up being a situation where we're going to have to eat a bullet. It's either a ballot or the bullet. And he goes on to say that as Black folks, what you and I have got to do is get involved. You and I have to be right there, breathing down their throat. Every time they look over their shoulder, we want them to see us. And I feel, as you talked about the differences between the two folks that are running for president, we as Black folks need to know we are right there, because we have a man, like you said, who is running for president, who says he wants to allow police to kill us without consequence. Right. We are literally talking about the ballot or the bullet.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I can't let this slide. So.
Okay, well, no, not your
I'm
turn.
sorry.
Let's give it to Tamara Brown.
All right, let me remember.
All right. Well, I didn't realize we were going to be talking national politics today, but
we gonna jump into local. We got time because we already know we're gonna do the disco version of the show.
Okay. Yeah. So it's never a question until we're on the ballot. It's never a question, as Angela said. It's never a question until, her generation is saying, well, what are her qualifications? I had the same question about Trump. It's like, what was his qualifications? I didn't see that he's never been in government. He's never been, he's never and unsuccessfully ran his companies and did some shady deals and everything else. So her qualifications are that she's not only been in public office and elected twice for state prosecutor for California, but as well locally, and then became a senator again, elected twice. So apparently she was doing a good enough job to be elected twice to all of those positions, and now she is the vice president of the United States. So that means that as vice president of the United States, she is in all of these important meetings with wherever the current president is, or if she's not in those important meetings, he has her assigned to other important meetings. Gotcha. So she's already doing the job as vice president. She's more than qualified.
Yeah, exactly. And she has a brain cell unlike her opponent. But anyway, we're going to jump into the candidates who are going to be on the special election ballot for the at-large seat in Prince George's County. And I just want to put this disclaimer out first. When Derek Davis et al. Came up with the idea for the at-large seats, wasn't for it because I viewed it as a workaround for term limits. So I needed to make that PSA out there. But given that we have it, I would like for you ladies, in alphabetical order, you go first. Give your 90-second infomercial as to why you are uniquely qualified to do this job.
Well, thank you for having me here. I have years, over 15 years, of being a dedicated public servant to the people of Prince George's County. I worked for the county council as a social service and education specialist. I'm an attorney by trade and training. And I was also a member of the House of Delegates representing District 25 in Annapolis. I have an understanding and have worked with all levels of government, from federal to local to state. I know exactly what's happening. I've analyzed the budget for years. I know how the school systems, what's happening in our schools. I'm one of the only candidates on the ballot that has children in our schools. And right now we actually have no one on the council that has children in our schools, yet 65% of our budget goes to the schools. And there are lots of questions about what's happening there.
Okay, footnote, 65% of our budget is earmarked to go to the schools.
Facts.
It don't necessarily
and
make it there.
And that is absolutely one of the problems that we aren't talking about and addressing. I have children with special needs. And so one of the reasons that really pulled me when this opening occurred was because for the past couple of years, I have been fighting for my children to receive adequate services. With my education, with the time, that flexibility that I have, I know that if as much as hard as I fought for my children to receive services, there are so many others that are not receiving what they need because their parents don't even have access to the resources to fight. So I am dedicated to going forth, pushing for things that are going to help address the issues in our school system, make sure our seniors are getting the tax credits that they need, make sure that if we're talking about
That's
having...
one of my questions. So your infomercial time is up. Let's go to Miss Tamara Brown. I don't mean to be rude, but
No, I
wanna
appreciate
get-
Let's get to the question.
yeah.
Sure. So what makes me uniquely qualified for this position is that I am the only candidate that has land use experience in advocacy. I also am a Howard University School of Law trained attorney, and I have been using my legal skills to be an activist and an advocate for my community on land use issues. 75% of what the council does is sit as the district council on land and zoning matters. And
You said 75%?
75%. The other things that they do, they sit as the Board of Health on health issues. That's probably about 10% of what they do. And then the remainder has to do with legislative as well as budget. But the majority of work that they do has to do with land use issues. Now, by no means do I consider myself an expert on that, but what I can tell you is since the early 90s, I have been an advocate fighting with my community, fighting for my community on land use issues, particularly in the southern part of the county where I live. And I have dealt with developers. We have been successful in getting the needs of what we really want in development by our advocacy. And so I think that uniquely qualifies me to be on the county council, because I think a lot of people are very surprised at what the county council actually does, what the job really entails, and most people are not familiar with land use. I am
Most
a graduate.
people are not familiar with what the council does, and that's a question that we have.
Right.
Because we want to take folks to school. We're not here to convince or persuade. We are here to educate.
Sure.
And in keeping with what you just said, one question I would have liked to have asked you on Tuesday is that you said you were not anti-development, which is what some of the folks in your district is. I know a lot of people over there in 8. Rather, you are a smart developer, and I'd like for you to expand on that.
Sure. So I was gonna just add one more key point to my resume, and that is I'm a graduate of the first cohort of the Neighborhood Planning Academy, which was put on by Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, the Planning Board. And in that, it was about a 6 weeks course where we got an in-depth education on land use and planning. And so when I say that I'm not anti-development, that I want smart development and smart growth, is I want the infrastructure to come in first or alongside of all of the development that we are anticipating to do. So if you're going to build 100 townhomes, if you're going to build 400 townhomes in this area, please do not give me a 10-foot right in and right out on a 2-lane road. I need you to widen the road. I need you to account for the number of households that you're going to have, so that is the school capacity adequate enough? I need you to also help me to understand, are we going to have enough policing to police that new community? I need to understand that are our hospitals, we opened up a new hospital that was already at capacity. And that has nothing to do, that's political, and that has to do with regional competition. And I won't go into that, but in terms of infrastructure, if we're building, but do we have the capacity to do it? And, it took me almost an hour to get here from the southern part of the county to Beltsville. And so what that tells me is that we are at capacity in this county in terms of building and development. And in order to handle the strain, whether it's traffic, whether it's congestion in schools, 40 kids to a class, any of those issues, it all has to do with smart growth and smart development.
Gotcha. And I heard you on Tuesday, and I hear your passion for schools today, because I got a lot of questions about that. That is, if I were a single issue voter, that would be my focus. How can we, well, first, let me go to this one first. We have English language learners, and that's embedded in the curriculum.
Correct.
So these folks from, other countries come in. When they come out of the Prince George's County school system, they're bilingual, which makes them more marketable. Okay, we got black children, and we're not mandating that for them. We're not giving them the same advantage. What would you do? Or why is it not mandated for, kids across the board? Excuse me. So everybody, when they graduate high school, will have equal footing in the marketplace. Am I making sense?
Yes, absolutely, okay. And it should be.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that can be passed, I believe, on the state level.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And is something that we can work with. And this is one of the things, having been working with all levels of government, that's something that we can and should be advocating for our state delegation to be advocating for. And whether or not they can get it, one of the things we used to constantly do when you're in Annapolis is if you can't get it to go through for statewide, because you're going to get pushback, you can always submit what is called a delegation bill, which then applies only to Prince George's County. And so there are ways to make sure that is happening. But then there are also, in other counties, they are mandating it, right? And so we know
that it can be done.
That it can be done, and we should be matching that, because we shouldn't just not be, we need to be, the children that come out of Prince George's County Public Schools need to be on par, if not better, than every other school district in this state, if not this country. And the fact that they are challenging them and providing them with more resources is an abomination.
Yeah, well, when because I've been here since 1978, and I remember when Prince George's County was ranked, and it just seems like since Jack Johnson hit, we've been going downhill on roller skates. But how can we make something like that happen? A regular constituent like us, do we need to address our assembly people?
Yes.
Okay.
And you should. So when I was in the State House, what I would typically do, I would hold monthly meetings with my constituents, and that's something I will implement even as at large. I'll hold them across the county. But most, not all, but most of them should be holding, if not monthly meetings, at least a pre-legislative session where you talk about what you're planning to do. And that's when the citizens can show up and be advocating for what they want. If your assembly member is not doing that, you can always go to it's required by our law that the Prince George's County delegation always has a delegation public hearing on the bills that they are proposing to go down to Annapolis. And so what we should be doing then is if that's not included in that agenda, as citizens, you show up and you advocate and say, we would like a delegation bill adding this and addressing this issue. And every year we have what's called a late public hearing in Annapolis. And so that late public hearing is for all of the bills that weren't heard in that initial hearing. So if I was someone trying to get something added, I would have my folks showing up to that initial hearing, asking for it, demanding it, because they are your legislators. That's our job. And then making sure that is on the agenda and heard in the late delegation bill that usually happens in Annapolis during session.
Okay, because I know I've been to a DNC in-person meeting, but it seems like all the notices that I've been getting here of late are Zoom meetings, and that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I'm a belly-to-belly, let me get in your face kind of person, because I like reading body language, because the big part of communications, 55% of communication is your body language, 38% is tone of voice, and it's only 7% of the words. So I like to get in folks' face to get a feel for who they are. And I guess that was as it relates to special education. And I'm gonna get that to her. Okay.
You know I was ready.
Yeah, I know you were. What is your vision and proposal timeline for the implementation of said vision?
So as it relates to special education, and you have to remember, again, I gave you the responsibilities of the county council,
Right.
land use, board of health, and then any other legislation and budget issues. So education really has to do with the Board of Education and the school board. So if there is a curriculum that is missing and needs to be improved, yes, we can work with the school board. We don't have jurisdiction per se. The only thing we have jurisdiction over is the power of the purse.
Is the money. That's what I'm saying.
Is the power of the purse for education. I would like to do with all agencies, including the school board, have a desk audit. We need a desk audit from every agency on a consistent basis, just about quarterly, if you will, to say, here's where we're spending our tax dollars, what are we spending them on, and give actually the county council the ability to do line item budgets, to do line item deletions of budgets, so that we can either say, hey, in terms of special education, we need greater resources to reach the classrooms to give our students the resources that they need to be successful. And so we're not doing that right now at the county council level. We're giving carte blanche. We just write a blank check to the school board, and then all of a sudden we start to hear about some of the abuses, the misuse of funds, the funds not being used properly, money not, grant money being turned back because we didn't use it and didn't file the appropriate things. You heard me talk about that on Tuesday. But it's a travesty because we are wasting money. And if 65% of our budget is going to education, we need to have greater oversight of what's going on. So in terms of special education, yes, I would like to see and assure and work with our Board of Education partners to make sure that the resources that our students need will go to them and it meets them in the classroom. Each school has a school-based budget. And so the school-based budget says, the principal says, and I've been to these meetings even though my children are adults and no longer in PGCPS.
Right, gotcha.
I've been to these meetings and they say, these are the things that we need here at X school. And the principal presents this at the PTSA meeting and they say, well, what are some of the needs of the parents here for your scholars? And we articulate those. And then she has to incorporate whatever else she can get so she can get for her budget. But usually the budget comes down school-based, this is what you get. And if you need more, then that's where we need to be advocating to say either across the board or for this particular community school, this particular school that we have here, there are greater children with special education needs. They may be on the autism spectrum and they need certain sensory type equipment that's not in our classrooms. Those are the things that we can help advocate for with our school board.
Okay, here's my question with that. So, and you all are in charge of putting money into the school system,
Right.
or budgeting money. So what I'm saying is that you don't know what you budgeted money for. You don't. That's why I liked when you responded, we need to do an audit.
Exactly.
Is that something that y'all can make happen on the council? And that's just a yes or no question.
Absolutely.
I think so, yes.
Okay. All right, because again, property taxes. We are carrying, property owners in Prince George's County are carrying this county.
Yes.
I just got a tax bill the other day. My tax is going up. I'm old. I can't afford to move. And you have folks, builders and developers, calling seniors especially, offering them $300,000, maybe even $300,000 or $400,000 for their house, not educating them on the fact that if they don't turn it in 90 days, then they're going to get hit with a capital gains tax, and then they can't afford to move to do anything else. What can you do about that? Because I'm telling you, two things that really offended me. Because I testified on May 28th about the elderly property tax relief credit. When it first came out, it was promoted as an additional 20%. And I get that, I get that, it's a revenue generator. It was promoted as an additional 20% over and above the homestead. Yeah.
That's right.
But we have enough freaking businesses out there to care, so you can take some of the weight off of us. But increasingly, our property taxes continue to go up. And again, what can y'all do about that, if anything, or is that an assembly thing?
That is actually an assembly thing. And the reason it's an assembly thing because it's based on our Maryland state assessment. Your housing value, our taxes, I got mine in the mail too, and it went up, but it went up based on the value of your house. So your house, as your house continues to get equity, you're going to pay more because of the equity that you have accrued. And so now the value, you may have purchased your house like we did, it was $215. That was the purchase value. The house is now worth close to almost $500,000 now. And so it's based on the assessed value, and that's why your taxes are continuing to
So that's how they're working around trim.
That's how they work. Well, that's how they're working around, trim.
Yeah,
and
that's how they're working around trim.
Yes. It's based on the assessed value that comes from the state. The state does the assessment.
So is it anything that can be I
and
know
again, that's why I said the only thing that's going to be a Maryland General Assembly question and solution. And as Angela indicated, if it can't go statewide, which I know other jurisdictions, or particularly Montgomery County, is not going to be for that. But it would have to be.
But we pay more taxes in Montgomery County. I have a son who lives in Montgomery County. We pay more taxes.
Well, of course, and the adage that you hear from the current county council and what you've heard from other county councils is that Montgomery County actually has a better commercial tax base, which is accurate. Now, we do have a couple of engines, MGM. We have a couple of engines. The problem is that we've got bad legal advice.
We got bad leadership. We got bad leadership.
We got bad leadership, but bad legal advice on a number of things. So why we have a hold harmless clause for MGM that they have to pay if they make more money, which they have been doing since the casino opened, than Anne Arundel Live and Horseshoe Bay in Baltimore, that they have to pay a hold harmless clause to make them equal with MGM. That money should be taxable money that's coming into the Prince George's County coffers as revenue. I don't know who negotiated that. I don't know where that came from, but clearly that.
Wait a minute. Go ahead, McKay.
That don't even make sense.
Wait a minute.
Oh, no. That don't even make sense. So,
on record.
And I think my question is, so because MGM came and they're the better casino. They're the better,
They're the second highest grossing casino in the country.
What's the first?
It's in Vegas.
It's in Vegas. Yeah. MGM in Vegas.
Oh, I'm about to say
it's still MGM.
I'm right. I thought you were about to tell me the clown man. But anyway, I had questions. Look, and so you're saying that because they do so well, and I guess they're taking revenue from the other two casinos. They have to pay
the other two casinos.
No matter what.
That's correct.
And that's money that should be going into the
Prince George's County's revenue coffers.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that don't make no sense.
And that's how they sold it to the electorate, is that this money coming from video gaming and the casinos is going to education. Everybody was for that. But again, this is what I tell folks. When you took the civics and the government out of school, civics and government is going to impact you your entire life. Math, English, civics, and government is going to impact you your entire life. But by design, I believe, and welcome any comments, they pulled it out because they don't want you to know.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So how can we fix that, education person?
Well, and once again, we're talking about curriculum, of course. And so curriculum, addressing it at the state level and addressing it with the school board. Going back to something that you said, even on how we negotiate for contracts, how, and Tamara mentioned about how one of the things I noticed when I was an employee, when I sat with the county council, I came here from City of New York, and I worked for government in the City of New York. Prince George's County has this interesting way that they negotiate with developers. And I used to say to the council members, they negotiate as if the developers are, as you say, are the prize, right? They negotiate and they leave way too much on the table. They give way too much away. Having sat in rooms where like the City of New York negotiates, they come to the table and they try to lead with everything. Okay, they make sure that those developers pay into coming into this to the area. And I understand we are not New York City, but what we do need to enter into negotiations thinking is that they want to be here. And we provide services. This is a great place to be. Now, we've got improvements to make, but when we're negotiating with developers, we need to be making sure that they're paying for all of the things we're talking about. And another thing we need to do is go back through some of the standing contracts that already exist and enforce clauses and things that are already there that they did not do. There are developers that agreed they were going to build certain things and those never came. And we've never gone back and asserted our rights as a county for you to either do it or to pay us for the default.
That's right.
This
That's
is one
exactly
thing
right.
that I also think about because I think developers are stealing houses out here because they won't have to go and do the infrastructure. They can just put something on top because the water lines, the electric lines, all that stuff is all already there. And by not, what's my question? I do have one. How can we get because you said that you hold forums with your constituents. Don't like the Zoom thing because I can't raise my hand and ask a question in real time. We keep our seniors uneducated, uninformed.
Not just your seniors, everybody.
How do we fix that?
So that's one of the things that also makes me uniquely qualified. I've been my whole purpose for running and in the times that I've run previously has been, and what I continue to do in terms of my advocacy and education, is to educate and keep people informed. What we do consistently well, which is a disadvantage to every resident in Prince George's County, is that we keep them ignorant and we use legalese to confuse them, particularly at the ballot box when there are ballot initiatives.
Right.
But on anything. And so what I do and what I've been trained to do as a social engineer from Howard University is to use my legal skills to tell you exactly, no, this is what this means legally, and this is how it impacts you. They do not like me saying that and spreading that information, but that's exactly what I've been doing for the last 2 decades.
And just as an aside, I know Muse stole that election, but continue.
Yes.
I know he did because I wrote the Board of Elections because I saw some sideways stuff happening as an election judge.
Okay.
I saw it.
Okay. Well, so one of the things that as an at-large council member on the Prince George's County Council that I will continue to do my outreach to my community in terms of my Angela talked about meetings, not only meetings, but telling you, and this is what I have said, that this is on the agenda, folks. I may be leaning towards voting this way, but I want to hear from you.
Absolutely.
You have to do that and tell people what we're voting on a consistent basis so they know what's going on. You know, this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And in order to do that, you need to know the same information that I know. You should not be under NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and saying you're representing the people. There's no reason that I talked to a former council person yesterday, and he was saying, well, we were under NDA. I was like, there's no reason.
Wait a minute, what?
So I asked him.
And I guess you're not going to name drop.
I'm not going to name drop, but I asked him about Conterra, which is right down the street from here. Conterra was given a TIF, which stands for Tax Incremental Financing, which means that developer doesn't have to pay property tax, or they pay it over a longer period of time. They don't get the bills that we get, that we have to pay every semi-annually, annually, whatever you have it set up. They get to pay it over a 20-something year period, and then they break the clause and didn't put a thing over there. They cut all those trees down in Conterra, and they built a whole bunch of apartments, and there's absolutely no commercial there. They did it in Conterra, they did it in Westphalia, you name it, you name any community that they were supposed to have done it in, and they've given them a tax increment. You say that why are taxes so high? We need to stop giving TIFs. If you give me a TIF, I want my infrastructure in first. I want the commercial in first. You will not get a tax increment financing from me, or you shouldn't get it from the entire council until we get the promises that you indicate. We have been bamboozled so many times in this county with those tax increment financing. It's ridiculous and it needs to stop.
Somebody need to hire me so I can tell them to run me my money.
And what they'll do, what they've constantly, how they've justified it, is they build the houses first, and then they claim the houses aren't selling, we aren't getting the value, and then they try to say, and so we can't build the commercial. And so that's exactly why you need to require commercial is built first, and then you build your residential around it, which also just makes commercial sense.
Okay, which brings me to DPI. Okay, now the public information officer at DPI, Avis Thomas Lester, I've had a conversation with her. She said she would come on the show. But ever since then, she's been avoiding me like the plague. But I know people who have had to shut down their businesses waiting for DPI to come and inspect, and only learning later that you have folks who are not, I don't know what a certified inspector is, but you say, give me a couple of grand and you can have this permit. That's happening right now. Who can fix that?
That's an agency, so it's is under the county executive. But what can be done is that an ethics filing can be made with the county office of ethics against that person. So whoever is being asked for a bribe, that person needs to write to the board of ethics and say, please investigate this. This has been asked of me. This is the inspector that has asked this of me, and I refuse to pay. And I think that I'd like to have somebody else assigned to my case so that I can get my inspection and open my business. We need to do a better job in supporting, particularly our small business and minority business owners.
Some businesses have had to close down because of DPI.
And even homeowners who are trying to rebuild. I've had floods in my home and been stuck in hotels where, as you're waiting for things to come through, and I've talked with seniors who are not able to even, because they can't begin the rebuild, or their rebuild is held up and they're having to pay out of pocket, waiting for inspectors to come so that they can proceed. So it's absolutely under the office of the county exec, because the agencies are. But one of the benefits of having someone that's worked in all levels of government, I've worked under the county exec, I was DOE, Legislative Council, and I know how the council works. One of the things, as we said, the power of the purse, the council can always, and has done this at times, they can call for an investigation, they can have hearings, one of the things that we would do is if a constituent calls, you can call the head of DPI in and say, this is what's being reported to me. So if the ethics isn't moving, as your council member, as your at-large member, I will be saying, no, let's have this conversation now. Let's have it publicly, because as Tamara said, this isn't done behind closed doors. And let's have a conversation where we involve all of the folks and figure out what are solutions.
I have called my council member's office, Jolene Ivy, and asked about DPI. I mean, I left a message because, and I generally, early on I was getting callbacks, and kudos to Nikki Greco, because she has always been responsive up until this year. Because I guess I'm asking too many hard questions, I guess, or questions they don't want to give me the answer to. Because I have heard people in District 8 have told me that Calvin Hawkins has actually said to them that he ain't worried about his seat because he has the developers in his pocket. I just want to know how I can help to fix some of this stuff. Because this is my tax dollars. And it's getting like, it's ouch time for me.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, if a district, any district across the board in this county, if somebody's council person has actually been bold enough to say that and has articulated that, then again, that board of ethics needs to be filed.
Should we do the governor? Because the county executive's office is not as responsive as I would like them to be. Can we go above their heads?
Well, you should at least start with the Board of Ethics, because they'll say, well, you didn't follow the proper protocols.
Yeah, they will always do that.
So they're going to say that first. So you need to file the ethics complaint with the county's Board of Ethics and say, my at-large council person, or this at-large council person, or my district council person has admittedly and boldly told me that the developers are in my pocket.
But he hasn't said it to me. He said it to somebody.
No, but
you
that's
can pass that along.
The person who, yeah, I'm not saying you. I'm saying the person to whom he made that comment.
Oh yeah, well, she ain't scared. I know she ain't scared.
Okay, well, they need to file an ethics complaint.
And above and beyond that, when you ask, and not, having not heard this in firsthand, there are two other offices that you can also be calling if you do not feel that the ethics office is responding to you, or the Office of the State Prosecutor is actually an independent entity that is in the state of Maryland.
It's the Office of the Attorney General.
No.
You're not talking about the Office of
No,
the
I'm not
You're not talking about Anthony Brown?
No, I'm not talking this. And a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, okay.
No, there is an Office of the State Prosecutor, completely separate from the Attorney General, because there is an reason why this is. But this office is specifically tasked in their mandate that they look at ethics and corruption in government. And they are separate from the AG because there are, of course, political implications of the AG. This is, so if you look up, you can go state of Maryland, or just Google Office of the State Prosecutor. Additionally, if you go even higher, of course, the DOJ has a unit that investigates ethic complaints on local government. Not that you ever want to, well, we always want to try and represent our county in the best way, but if our county is not being represented in the best way, and there are citizens who want to file complaints and feel they have not been receptive on the local level, those two entities, on the state level, it's the state prosecutor; on the federal level, it's the DOJ. They investigate and have folks that are tasked, and this is what they do.
Thank you for that, because I didn't know that. Okay. Let me see what else. I think I've asked you all of mine.
And well, in going back, you spoke about, I didn't get to, when we talked about having things in the district and how citizens can be informed. Some other things, there are newsletters. All of the offices, we should be having ways, whether it is texting, emails, you should be able to be electronically in contact with the people that you're representing, your constituents, on a regular basis. And so that's something that I've always done. We also should be having, as I said, the meetings. But every time, as Tamara said, there's legislation being offered, you should be getting briefed on that. And you're absolutely right that it's intentional and that things are happening and we're not being discussed. One of the things we also should be looking at, and as public should be funding, shows like this, but also understanding the fact that our only media is the Washington Post and is the Washington News, they don't cover local issues in the same way.
Right.
And so even if you go down and spend time in Baltimore, and the Baltimore, the Sun, they cover what's happening more on their state, on their local level from their council and from their state delegates. So even though Baltimore, some may say that the makeup of the city is different, most people in Baltimore know their state reps, which a lot of Prince Georgians don't, even though they vote, even regular voters, because they just vote the ticket or what they got, right? A lot of people in Baltimore know what's happening on the state level. So there is a media accountability that it's hard to reconcile. Once I remember when I first worked at the council, we used to get the paper. Well, I forget what it was called, the Prince George's. It was a
journal.
PG
Journal.
The PG Journal.
In the
Centennial.
Centennial,
right.
And so, one of those things we should be looking at, whether it's public funding, whether it's is bringing back media that covers Prince George's, because that's another reason why, despite the fact that we have one of the most educated constituency, they aren't getting the information. We're not even having full issues about the issues around this election, the money that it's costing, and some of the ethical issues that are present here. We aren't having that conversation. And that's disturbing, because people don't know. And having been on both sides of government, both in office and not in office, it's known. And for some people, they use that to their advantage.
Oh, without a doubt. Because I heard a lot of, I have experience. But what have you done? I'm a results-oriented kind of gal. And on top of, and just kind of piggybacking on what you said, there are senior citizens out here who don't have computers, who do not have the internet. They don't even have smartphones. And what are you doing for them, government people? But anyway, rhetorical question. Let me see. I believe you ladies answered this question on Tuesday, but because we have a whole lot more people listening today, okay, I would like to, either one of you ladies, what are your 3 priorities when you get a seat at the table? When you get the at-large seat.
Sure. Okay. And I always open, because it kind of raises eyebrows when I say my first priority has to do with the budget. And that's because the county council, it was in a budget deficit, and we've heard from our county council that they were able to balance the budget and what have you. But we're going to
$71 million, where'd they get that from in like 60 days? But continue. I'm sorry.
Sure. But, so again, with that desk audit that I'm proposing, I think there's a lot of waste, and particularly in our Prince George's County public school system. And so I want to be laser focused, because with our seniors, we're hearing we don't want our taxes raised. In fact, we want additional tax credits, right? And then we're also hearing, but we need these other services. And so if we're spending 65%, over 60% of our budget on education, I particularly want to look at the school board budget to see where it is. I think there's way too much administration at Sasser, and I think there's some fat that needs to be cut and trimmed immediately, that we can get the services that we need, talking about scholars on the autism spectrum, scholars that have special needs, what have you. So the budget is a very important issue for me, and I'm still going to stand on that, and I can stick out as a sore thumb. Second and third would be public safety, but again, it all ties back to the budget. We are severely understaffed on our police force, but that's nationwide since George Floyd, but
and probably even more since what's her name, Malloy?
Sonia
Mason, yes.
Sonia.
So again, taking advantage of the fact that we need to use some of the DOJ grant programs in policing to help us to fund some of the things that we need for policing, including staffing, retaining, and keeping our police officers on the beat, so that Do you know that in Maryland, our state police do not, because of a memorandum of understanding, our state police do not patrol our state highways in Prince George's County.
Yeah, I did
They
know
would
that.
drive through Prince George's County and then whoop whoop in Montgomery County, whoop whoop in Charles County, whoop whoop in Calvert County.
But in the in my particular area, we can call and say, I want a policeman to patrol my area, every day or whatever.
Okay, but
We get that.
but but Maryland drivers in Prince George's County, we still pay the same gasoline tax. We still pay the same fees to get our cars registered and what have you as every other jurisdiction. Why is there only a memorandum of understanding with Prince George's County that the state police do not patrol the state roads in our county? It's there's so much that
So much
has
crazy.
been crazy, but I was like, who legally agreed to this? Where was the Office of Law? Who signed off on something as critical as that? And so the third thing would probably be with the budget is looking at that tax structure, public safety, and then as well as education. And
Is that your third one,
that's
education?
the third one would be education, making sure, again, it's still budget though. It's still budget related.
Oh, yeah, got it.
Bringing the money to the classroom-based budget. I do have a fourth because housing is a big problem in this county. We have still, even since 2008, we still have more home foreclosures
Yep.
in Prince George's County than our surrounding jurisdictions.
And you have a lot of empty.
And dilapidated.
Right. And so the housing stock that we have the county needs to, in my opinion, the housing stock that we have that are empty, that are going into foreclosure, need to be bought by the county, not by the developer, so that they can scam and talk about the exact things that you were mentioning earlier about people not having the ability to pay the capital gains tax on that. But if the county starts to purchase more land and purchase, we control
that.
we control what we build and how we build it, as opposed to being tools of the developers and at the hands of the developers and saying, oh, please come to our county, please build this, please build that. We need to control a little bit more of that, and I think we should be doing investing into those home foreclosures. Use those homes. I've always said, and before I even heard and knew of Angela's plight and situation, because I think it's since this election, it's the first time I've heard it, but I've said that we should purchase those homes and use them for victims of domestic violence.
Absolutely.
And people who are homeless in our county, and make sure that we have a housing stock that can help people transition. It's
Gotcha.
it's a handout, it's a hand up, if you will, and say,
It's a hand
hey,
up.
it's a hand up saying, hey, you can stay here temporary 6 months to a year to get yourself on your feet, this, that, and the other, and then let the next person and the next person. I think we should
Gotcha.
do a better job of that, and in terms of having a housing stock that's for our millennials, because I have a millennial and they can't afford to buy in Prince George's County, and so there needs to.
Don't get me started.
But we need to start thinking a little bit more creatively, and I think the way we do it is that we as the county own the land and own the housing stock, and instead of looking to developers to develop
But
that.
doesn't Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning own most of the land in the state?
They are one of the
Yes.
largest landowners.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, we're going to move over to Miss Angel now. Your priority is education. I'm just playing. Okay.
You're not wrong, but really quick, just to address one of what Tamara brought up.
No, take your time.
So one of the things that I did when I was in office, I used to hold foreclosure. This was during the 2015 when we were dealing with that. I used to get a monthly report of the dilapidated and foreclosed house and pre-foreclosure houses, and we would have almost 3,000 houses. And at one point we had more than 3,000, almost I think it was like 3,800. And so DPI, and there are agencies and entities that are keeping track of these houses. We know how they are declining. And one of the things that I worked on while I was in Annapolis, and they've been implementing this other places, is a land bank. Because one of the things, as Tamara referenced, the county, and especially with the financial situation that we are dealing with, it's very difficult to get them to be dealing with the dilapidated housing stock. But by creating, and there's lots of ways you can create a land bank, but oftentimes you're using, you can create it with nonprofits because there have been churches that are willing to invest in the community. You can create it, yes, somewhat with business owners and developers, but it's an entity that can actually take those homes, place them in the land bank, and you can create legislation which requires rules and regulations around who can purchase them, who can renovate them, what are the terms for them turning them over. And it has been successful in revitalizing communities. You can have some where they are, as you said, and of course as a domestic violence survivor, that can be earmarked for people to get a hand up. You can earmark them for folks that are veterans. You can earmark them for people in our community who need group homes and services. And you can also just earmark them for revitalization and, quote unquote, flipping, but done in a way where we can afford to create it so that it's affordable stock. That is a very, I won't say easy, but it is a solution that has been implemented not just all over the country, but in the state, and there are models for us to do it. It would take cooperation on all levels of government, and it is something, while I won't say it's one of my top 3, but having already worked on it and knowing where the different parts are in the system is something that as a member of county council, I would be advocating for and showing us how we can move for it. Going to what my top three are, you are absolutely right. I'm not a single issue voter at all. I don't think as a Black woman in America you can afford to be. But for the education, as I said, my children are in these schools. My children have special needs. My daughter gets up at 5:30 and has to be on a bus for 45 minutes so that that's the closest school that can give her all the things that she needs, right? And so sitting and looking, very similar to what's been said, looking at the budget, but also addressing the fact that I know our students aren't getting what they need. And I know, in fact, we are in violation of IDEA in many ways. And so we need to very quickly get a hold of that. We need to be looking at the federal grants.
Could you tell people what IDEA stands?
Sorry, that is that's basically, that is the law that regulates what students should be receiving, whether if you should be getting an IEP, which is individual education plan, whether you're getting a 504. So all of that falls under what we call the IDEA Act, Individuals with Disability Education Act. Yep. So, and so when we reference IDEA, there's federal requirements that our schools should be giving services to individuals with disabilities. Even if you are not, there's even federal requirements. If you think your child is having an issue, you should be putting it in writing, because if you just speak it and say, hey, I think and you don't put it in writing, the moment you write it down, it triggers a 30-day time frame where they have to then begin taking action. The moment, if you are in an IEP or a 504 plan and you disagree, you should be writing that down. That triggers actions. And if you are in these plans and your children are not receiving the services, you should be letting everyone know. And it's something that I am absolutely committed to fighting for. It's something that I want immediate action taken on. And as holding the power of the purse and the budget, it's something that as a member of county council, you can absolutely be asking for that accountability and making those changes immediately. So that's one of the first things I absolutely will be doing. Secondly, going back to what we're talking about crime and when we're talking about economic development, it still goes back to our schools. Currently, I work all over this country, talk with different business owners, talk with folks in different industries. When they think about moving anywhere, especially investing in a place they're going to build a multi-million-dollar business, they look at our school system and they look at the crime. And so one of the things that we know that has been helpful in addressing both of those is implementing community schools. And we already have some of the footprints to do that. Some of our newer schools have been built attached to community centers, and there are federal grants and funding that can help implement. It may not be fully what we know as a community school, but we know we can implement programs to serve the community, which will then be making it so that seniors have access to these facilities and being able to receive things that they need. You can bring health healthcare and other things into our neighborhoods by addressing. So creating community school plans. I would first start focusing on the schools and getting funding for the schools that are already in existence that are attached to community centers, which actually statistically are in some of our neighborhoods that need some of the most help. So that's something that can be done as council. It's budgetary, and it's also pulling on different departments to work together, and it's applying for federal grants.
Okay, what's the next thing?
The final thing is expanding our tax base.
Wait a minute, I had education and all of that. From what I was hearing, fell into education. What was the second thing I missed?
So second was really addressing crime through
public safety.
So public safety through implementing community schools and creating programs that are reaching our students that are at their worst.
Okay, Miss.
That's okay, because it's all interrelated. The final thing is, if we're just limiting it to 3, expanding our tax base by looking at some of the areas where we already have potential. One, it's also going back, and as I say, go back and go get your money, right? We need to be looking at some of the programs, Westphalia, Conterra. We need to be looking at some of those places where they have not fulfilled their obligations, and either you are refunding part of our TIF, we're finding the violations and making them either pay us or build what is supposed to be there. The other aspect is looking at some of the places where there are opportunities for development, and we as a county making plans and to actually draw what we want there. Recently, I think someone was asked, whether it's even just creating family spaces. We can look at some of the places that are around us in Alexandria, where they almost have an overrun in certain parks and in certain areas that are built for families. If we create similar spaces here, the people that are driving 30, 40 minutes over the bridge can come here to have some of the same activities. And we know that's already happening, and we can be replicating that. So addressing special education in our schools, addressing crime by once again implementing social service programs that are school-based in our communities, and then finally expanding our tax base by going to get the funds and things that are already owed to us, as well as expanding and drawing businesses here.
Okay. Michaela, you're so not the quiet person.
I know, this is the quietest I've ever been.
Yes, there's a lot of information coming through
and I love this. Great job.
2 lawyers.
Okay, but again, and she's an aspiring United States Senator.
I love that.
Okay, and she's relocating to Prince George's County. But based on our relationship over the past year, and your experience of having moved up here, relocating up here, what would you like to see happen? And and also based on conversations you've had with the children you've interacted with, what would you like to see? Do I need to come back? Do I need to come back to you?
Because it's going to end in a TED Talk.
TED Talks work for me.
I know, but we don't have that much time. Let's see.
Oh, yes, we do. Because Fabian ain't going to, I haven't seen him pop in the hallway yet. And I already told him this is going to be a disco version.
So what would I like to see? Well, it's one of the things that I talk to when it comes to like my generation. We oftentimes we vote in the interest of our parents or our grandparents. And so with me, I would say definitely like when what opportunities would be
I do not believe you are speechless.
I know, right? I know. Because my mind is somewhere totally different. Okay, so as a millennial, as someone, does it have to be based off of what their position is, or just
no?
question?
I asked you
what
you thought, and when someone asks you what you think, you can't give a wrong answer.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So, I think what my burning question is right now, with the state of the world and what we're seeing as being present, what would you say to a millennial or even I don't even know what's below me.
Yeah. Generation Alpha.
A generation. What would you say to a millennial?
She said Gen Z, the girl who was in the
shop.
Oh,
I'm sorry, you're right. Gen Z, then Gen Alpha.
Honey, the babies at this point. I don't even know. Are they paying real taxes is my question. Okay. What would you say to a young individual who doesn't have hope right now with the state of the world, who either someone that's either getting ready to graduate college or in grad school or getting ready to go to college, like what would you say to pretty much empower them to have faith in the future? I'll ask both ladies. Who just finished talking?
I think I did.
Okay, so that goes.
So I would say to them, and I say this actually to both of our millennials. We have a son who will be 27 next month and a daughter who will be 25 in November.
They're my age. Yes.
So
what you gonna say to us?
So what I tell them though, and they know from me being so civically active, community activist, is that the power really lies with you. And so it's your responsibility now to take the baton that I'm passing to you, to be your advocate for whatever it is that you need, whether it's on the job. Right now, my I call them young adults. I don't even call them my children anymore, but they are in their early stages of their careers. And I was like, you got to go in and advocate for what you want. I have a daughter who's an engineer, so she's a black woman, the only black woman probably not in her company, but certainly in her position. And she's out on the West Coast right now. But the point of the matter is us like, yeah, I know you're the only one in there, but that means that you've got to go and advocate for yourself, and you know how to go in and advocate for yourself. So my husband and I, we tell her that, hey, the future is what you make of it. You've got to put in, and then you've got to demand and ask.
Right.
And so what I would tell any young person coming out of college, just starting their careers, starting their lives, is that, know what it is, have a plan, write it down, read it, post it somewhere. And you might have to tweak it a little bit. Every once in a while you might have to tweak it, but know what it is that you want, and then be able to articulate that, because it says without a plan our people perish. You got those who read it, they run with it. And so she and my son, we indicate to them, write down this plan, make it plain, make sure you understand it, and then you be able to articulate what it is that you want and advocate for it and why it's important to you.
Absolutely.
And so I tell anyone, don't look at the world as this big place that you can't find your way in it. You find your niche, you find your purpose, you find your passion, and you pursue it. And I guarantee you, if you pursue your passion, you won't work a day in your life. I've heard that thousands of times. You won't work a day in your life, but you will be pursuing what you do. And then the other thing is that I tell people, and particularly this generation, because they're so self-centered focus.
Yes.
Is that you need to volunteer.
We have
you need to volunteer, and you need to take your focus off of yourself and someone that it has less than you, and look at the least of these, and then volunteer your service. You feel so. My son is coaching now. He used to play lacrosse in both high school and in college, and he is loving coaching. And I said, that's because you're doing something that's not for you.
Yeah.
Somebody else is appreciating your gift and skill and talent that you have, and they're looking up to you, and you're benefiting, and you're providing some encouragement and other things. So take the focus off yourself or what it is that you want, you need, whatever, and go and do something for somebody else.
What
and so
is
that's
that you always tell me? Take the microphone. And
because I have something to say.
Yeah.
Now she's ready.
Yes, because now look, now this is my favorite. I love advocating for my generation. My first thing that I would say is we can only do what we've been taught, number one. Number two, I would say I love that, and this is something that I've had to have a lot of humility to understand. Your kids, me, and like other few, we are anomalies. Like, we're the gems that pretty much get out there. But when you're looking, far as like from a bird's eye view from our generation, not all of them, majority of them have not gone to college. Majority of them have not enlisted into the military. A lot of them are business owners. You know, a lot of them have bought into another narrative. But when you're looking at where the state of the world is right now, because most of us are, that's why we're not having children. That's why we're not getting married, because we saw what our parents went through and we saw what our parents have done. And all of the things that were instilled into us, we're now going into these spaces. I work for the University of Virginia. Mm-hmm. If y'all know anything about the University of Virginia,
Tiki Torch.
Home of the Tiki Torches. That's how I tell them. And it is a place to be. Okay, it's a place to be. Shout out to my employer for that check. You know, we love that for me. But anyway, if I would not have the training, so I went to VMI. Are you familiar with that? So I went to VMI and Mary Baldwin for undergrad. So I had a completely different undergrad experience than most individuals, even who do go to college. And I say that it definitely equipped me for the life that I'm living. But then I have to sit down, because I was one of those, like, why, what is wrong with my generation? Like, why can't we get it? And my undergrad degree is in history and biology, but history is definitely,
that's a whole different.
Yes.
Don't even get started.
I'm not. I told you I was going to end in the TED Talk. You over asking questions. But when I look at generationally, what we have done, let's say in the last 4 generations, there's a lot of things that we're definitely missing, right? There's a lot of things that we did take heed to, but now, because I'm very pessimistic, so now I know. Look, know thyself. Ain't that what they say? Know thyself. Yeah. And so when I'm looking at where we are now, even like how impactful the next 4 years can be, is it really fair for us to say to a generation that we've gone through so much, not negating other generations, and I feel like we're not really prepared for the next 4 years. So it's easier to say, like, oh, you know, go get these degrees, you know, go be in these spaces, you know, take life by the head, and I don't know, whatever the sayings are. But with the way that the world is, if your daughter she's
the engineer.
She's an engineer, which is a predominantly white
males, white.
Right. Yeah. I work for the University of Virginia, where, I mean, someone could argue, well, you got your job because of DEI. So if DEI goes out of the way, you know, depending on how things fall, what then do we say to ourselves? Like, how do we become emboldened in those spaces?
Okay, but just as an aside, I was looking for when she said you go volunteer, you know, do something like that. You always tell me, my gifts and talents
will make room for me.
Are not for me. They are for others. You always say that.
I say my journey is not for me, it's for others. My gifts and my talents will make room for me.
Okay, maybe I'm remembering.
I'm just waiting for, look, the day that they knock on my door and say, are you ready? I'm just making sure that I'm ready.
You ready to ride out?
At dawn. Okay?
But you got to understand, they may not knock, and so you might have to ride.
Well, I'll go find the people them churn. I'll do that too.
That's
and you know, and you're right. Okay, let's follow that narrative, because I've always had this mindset, especially when I was mentored and like being mentored and poured into and things like that. I always expected for a baton to be passed like to me. You know, I expect for like these spaces that you women are, you know, creating for yourself to be the triathlon for the next generation. But if each generation, if we have to start from the very beginning, then really what are we doing?
Exactly. No, and you shouldn't. And
I don't want to. I really don't. It's hard out here.
It is hard. It is hard out here. Wow. Because between. So, because the original right, because we've gone a couple of loops around, right?
I got a lot to say.
You know, starting with I have children that are also, I have a 22-year-old, I have an 18-year-old, soon to be 17-year-old as well, and so I have folks in all of the millennial, X, Alpha. That's why when you were asking the generations, I was just naming them, because I was like, Lord,
and they all different.
They are. Yeah. But also, I will admit to something that she said. My children are also very different. My daughter went to her first board meeting when she was 3 months old. I was on a board for a nonprofit that worked in the Black community. My children have been on elections for their entire lives. And so they, people, so I ran into someone recently who told me about how she used to come to my meetings, because like I said, and she said, you would have your 5 kids behind you like little ducks, and they would file in, and you put them in the back of the room, and you give them their snacks and a something to do, and then you'd hold the meeting, and then you'd go and gather them up, and y'all file out. And she later said that's what, when she became a single mom, actually made her know that she could still run for office. And so my kids do have a different mindset. They've been involved in their entire lives and know it.
Because you've been passing the baton.
Exactly.
Taking them to school.
But they also are still millennials until and Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And so we still have the conversation of why they still, they're on social media. And so we're having the conversation that they're involved in. They see the reality shows. They have some of the questions. There is a lot of, at times, there's this interesting juxtaposition of full of hope and I can do anything, and because that's what the internet tells you, right? And then, but also abject hopelessness, because the internet also tells you the world is falling apart and there's nothing we can do to save it. And so there's, so in talking to my kids and to young folks, it is the fact that that's all true. If you know my story, I literally woke up every morning at one point and went to work. And honey, I didn't just go to work. I went to work and sat with heads of states, Governor O'Malley, Rashawn Baker, senators. I would be in these rooms, and I got my kids and I went home to a homeless shelter for months. Because I had lost everything, and the way that this county and this country is set up, you can lose everything and still and still be working because we don't have the safety net. Right. And so there was an abject hopelessness of my current situation, but there was also an abject, I know I have the resources within me through my faith and through, Tam done called out Howard University many times, and I just sit over here, but through the illustrious standard of excellence of Hampton University.
All right.
Hey, I'm not mad. Our son graduated from Hampton University.
Listen, exactly.
Look,
it's
our
HU
money,
love.
Our money went to Hampton. I know.
Exactly.
I love that for y'all.
Listen.
Here I am over here at the whole PWI.
It's okay.
That's okay. And my daughter went to PWI as well.
Exactly. So, so where I was taught that we can figure, you as a Black woman in this country, we've always put it on our back and figured it out. And so one of the things that I encourage young folks to do is, and I try to set up and give back, but to know that it is bleak. We do have a man that is running for president who, and I don't refer to him as a felon because I know some good felons. I'm going to be honest with you. The fact that he is a felon is not what demonizes that man. What demonizes him is that he lacks morality and character.
He's
and
a
that
shepherd for the devil.
And
that's what he is.
And so I don't refer to him as, but I say they have seen someone who is ran on hate, won with hate, governed with hate, and is now in the position where if we don't work like hell, could possibly do it again. So I can understand why you feel like there's hopelessness. But I also know that you have to get them to understand, but you make the difference, right?
Yes.
Like you are the key. I tell my children all the time, whether it's just get me a glass of water, because you can get this glass of water for me. It's like you can make a difference in everything that you do, it's big and small. Even just you being on this show, Michaela, representing your generation and then bringing them into the conversation, making it intergenerational is uniquely important. And what I encourage everyone, whether you are in this county listening to us here, get involved, vote in every election. And don't just vote because what you got in the mail, like do some research, vet your candidates. Don't just go with that's the name I know. Ask about what they've done for you. Ask, what is this costing us? What will it cost us? All of those things are important conversations to have. And if you don't do anything else, you can pick up a phone, you can vote yourself and encourage someone else to vote. You can participate in these community meetings. I hear folks tell me all the time. I always say there's this, they'll be like, I don't want to hear your text messages. I don't want to read your emails. Why are you bothering me? And then you'll hear from them, I never hear anything from anybody. But, sign up for the lists so that at least you're getting the information, and share it with everyone that you can, because we are our best communicators, whether we're talking about Vice President Kamala Harris this election, or what's going on with your trash or your schools. You are the best person to advocate for yourself and your community.
Got you.
All right, and if I could, go ahead.
Oh, I love that, and just another part of this, and it's so crazy. You know how when someone checks you about something, you have to. You have to be honest about it. So I'm currently finishing up my thesis and preparing to defend my thesis, and it's on the decolonization of curriculum. What we value is what we teach. Right. And my thesis advisor, because I'm black to the core of me, and it was my thesis advisor who's a white man, so it was real hard for me to receive this. But he made me, open up the parameters of my mind. And so then it's going to lead into this question. But he basically was like, well, Michaela, when you write from just a black perspective, you totally miss out on an entire group of people. And I was like, well, what group you talking about? You talking about the white people? He was like, no, just any other people other outside of the parameters of what you understand and what you know. And so when I began to ask the question, I stated by saying, like, there are certain people in our generation, and even in your generation, and even in yours, Miss Angela, that make it out. Just because a few of us make it out, it doesn't keep the level. I don't even know. It doesn't. Not everybody makes it.
Exactly.
And so I think what my question would be, when we're talking about the state of Prince George's County, when it comes to the curriculum, when it comes to the students and their level of understanding once they graduate, if they never hear about it, if they never have someone that, pours into them and creates that space for them to understand about voting, if they never go to the spaces with their parents from childhood or from the womb, if they're not lucky enough to have a two-parent household, or parents who did go to college, because I'm a first-generation college student, it was an experience. But anyway, the reality of it to where we are today, and I think those who make it really kind of stay in that sense of awareness. In the reality of it today, the percentage of me and your children is very small in comparison to everyone else of our generation. What honestly could we tell them, even if you had 30 seconds, what could you pour into them and say, if they're working at McDonald's and this is their first job and they've been there for however many years, like, what do you say to them to get them involved into the world now, when they think, well, because I always say those are rich white people problems. What if they're starting to say things like those are educated black people problems? Like, what do you say to our entire community to really galvanize them on pretty much any level?
Are you throwing the pass to me, or are you giving it to these ladies?
Oh, well, you just told me to ask questions. Now, you know when I'm going to ask questions, I'll be asking. I don't, whoever want, and the reason why I ask is because when I say I study history, I've been really deeply into seeing where we've shifted as a generation.
Where we went wrong.
Yeah, because I quite often say I don't believe that we're any better off than we were in 1865 when it was the end of slavery. Then when I'm reading about the Nadir movement, which is very much reflective to where we are now, and I'm reading about the grassroots activisms, the churches and things like that. And me being 27, born and raised in the church, there's not a church that I can go to and say, how do we galvanize the people? So that's what I'm saying. The narrative sounds really amazing and it sounds really good, but what about the very bottom of the people who we need? We can't leave them behind, who we need. And if there's, and one thing we have to be very honest, there's a disconnect between the generations.
I totally
when I
agree.
tell you, I be sad because I'm 27. I've been trying to learn how to bake some biscuits, okay? There's a disconnect between the generation. When I'm at my job, I'm more afraid of the black woman than I am the white man.
Okay, here's what I will tell you.
Okay, talk to me, y'all.
Again.
I'll teach you biscuits.
Okay. A lot of people, and I can cook. Some of the best cooks I know can't make a biscuit. I can make a biscuit. But continue.
I got the recipe now, y'all.
The first classroom is the cradle. That's the first classroom. Now, again, we have our education system nationwide has done us a disservice, because when I remember Spanish from 1964, so I can understand, folks, because I was taught Education meant something in the 50s and 60s. It does not seem to be valued as much now because there's so many distractions with the housewives shows, with the phones, with the computers, that they're continuous. We lose more by ballpoint than we do by gunpoint. But we have to start at the home. Black Lives Matter starts at your house. We have dropped the ball. And the only thing that I can see us doing, that's why I do this show. I can reach more people this way. I'm just going to continue to hammer the message because I know how important the message is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not everybody has a granny. That's what,
Well,
and that's what I'm really getting at. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm very blessed, very grateful that my blackness was inspired by at a very young age, right? But when we're really honest about where we are right now as a community, you know, and if we're looking at it historically, right? We are not connected on not one issue. For even Prince George's County isn't the most affluent black county.
Second now, because we're losing a lot of folks to Charles County. But continue.
Is that still in Maryland?
yes.
All right. That's the
Waldorf.
we gonna call Maryland the black state no more. I mean, we're not gonna call Maryland the black state, okay? But when you really think about looking at the current issues that we have now, right? Out of every movement that we've ever had, I mean, every movement, it came out of chaos. It came out of a need. It came out as a solution, right? But I'm saying, because it's easy for us to say, well, your generation needs to do that, and I can say, well, this is what your generation gave me, and then they can say, well, that's what her generation gave me, and that's has always been the argument and the narrative. For 3 generations to be here today, if you had the opportunity to pass on, say that's my question, if you had the opportunity to pass on your greatest 30 seconds of wisdom to pour into the next generation, to empower them to be able to take the baton, what would you say to them?
I would say to them, go to your pastors, because those are the ones who have the captive audience, and tell them, this is what we need. This is what you need to be preaching from the pulpit. That's what I would tell them. I don't care whatever church you go to, because they have the power. They have the captive audience. They can get the information out there. Why they're not doing it?
Okay, that's 30 seconds.
All right.
All right. So I'll answer it in a couple of ways. So first of all, my first job was at McDonald's. And I worked at McDonald's from the time I could start working, which is age 16, through college. Believe it or not, and I think I went from one minimum wage job to the next, even through college. I bagged groceries. I delivered pizza, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, my message to at least that person is there is hope, and there is a way to get out of this minimum wage job, even if you've been there for 10, 15, you said 20 years. If you want to better your life and improve your life, ask yourself, what is it that you want out of life? What is it that you want to do? And then again, you got to write that plan down. You at least write the vision down. You know, that's what.
But I think what she was asking, what would you tell her so we could hit the masses? Did I misunderstand you?
And then me?
Yes.
No.
Well, did I misunderstand you?
Like if you,
we're trying to reach masses, correct or incorrect?
Yeah, so like I'm saying, like if you so you're part of like my parents' generation. If you had the opportunity to talk to anybody in either generation, what would you tell them to empower them and embolden them? Okay. To even get in the fight or continue the fight.
So I think I answered that question the first time, but one of the things that my daughter inspired me to do, because she said, "Mom, I'm not reading your emails. I'm not nobody in our generation." So she helped me to create a podcast. So I have a podcast where the whole purpose of the podcast is to educate and inform the next generation of leaders and of voters, so they'll know what's going on in their local and state government. It's called All Politics is Local, the Maryland edition, with me, your host, Tamara Davis Brown. So we're streaming on all platforms. It's Spotify, Buzzsprout, Apple Spotify, we're on all platforms. My daughter is actually my executive producer, and it was her brainchild to kind of reach, when we talk about reaching the masses. But I think I answered the question about what I would say to them about making a plan. Figure it out what it is that you want to do, find your passion, and then pursue it. But you've got to write it down, and then you've got to advocate for yourself, whether it's specifically for yourself or on a larger issue. So the larger issue is, well, who do I talk to after that? It could be your local leaders, but as Angela said, it could be your local pastor. I met with pastors yesterday. They were on a Zoom call, but I had the opportunity to speak with several pastors on this, I guess they do it weekly, call to, talk about my candidacy and who I am. And,
who was it with Plan, Prince George's Leadership Action Network?
I don't know who
Okay,
it was.
no problem.
I don't know the name of the organization, but what I will say, it was Pastor Charles McNeil was the one who orchestrated it for me. So whatever he's affiliated with, then that's the organization. So,
okay.
But I know he's affiliated with a couple of others because I'm having another one with him. This time it'll be in person. But anyway, nevertheless, when you talked about that, kind of touched a nerve, because a lot of people do attend church and they do listen to their pastors.
They definitely listen. You got a captive audience.
Not just have a captive audience, but they take to heart exactly what they say, whether it is the gospel that they're preaching, or if they take 5 minutes like our pastor does. I attend From the Heart Church Ministries in Suitland, Maryland, right across from Andrews.
I know where it is.
Yep. And he'll take a couple of minutes sometimes and do, a PSA on, the state of what's going on, and people take to heart what they say. So if the persons are attending church, but what I would do, and what's incumbent upon us as elected officials, we have to go to where the people are. So if they're not coming to church, if they're not listening to a podcast, if they're not online, they don't have, what's the local block party? Where's the next hip hop? Where's the
You're talking to us.
We have to go to them and bring the message to them. We have to go where they are. We can't expect them to come to us.
Okay, but would you agree? Because I do not agree that all politics are local, because the feds set the benchmark, and we have to work within that benchmark. If there's no benchmark, then it's left to the
for the average person, I do agree. I do believe that, and that's why we named the podcast "All Politics is Local," because for most people, the things that they care about happen at the local level.
Yeah, but the thing that impacts us most happen at the federal level.
The thing that happens the most, that's systemic and that's long lasting and that don't change quickly enough, happens at the federal level. But what most people care about, and what's most people that it's important to them about, really happens at the local level. And
but
they should
still, again, and I get you're talking to that generation, but I think the impact, how do we get, and that's what I hear her saying. Maybe I'm.
That's what I say. We got to go to the block parties. We got to go to the
hip
hop shows.
You go to the hip hop shows, but you have that captive audience in church for that segregated hour every Sunday. That's how I believe we can reach our community. And ministers and pastors are not freaking doing their job.
Well, I did challenge them yesterday. I challenged them, and I told them, I said, historically and biblically.
I don't know biblical.
I do.
What am my point is that government should not be doing the things that churches should be doing.
Okay, talk to me, Ms.
So some of the social programs, the stuff around family, this or that, that's not a government. Am I preaching?
What to the choir?
Okay, so that's not
But again,
that's not the responsibility. It's a community thing, but it's not a government thing. And we've made it a government thing, and now we're competing for dollars, government dollars. Should Prince George's County budget be 65% education? Should it be the things that we are budgeting and paying our tax dollars for? Honestly, a lot of stuff was intended and should still be intended to handle by the church. If you look anywhere in the Bible, and that's why I'm saying it's biblical, you hear where they're saying
biblical that the gay man wrote. Go ahead.
Okay, well, that's another argument. We're not there today, but it does say, take care of your widows, take care of your children, take care of the poor, do this, that. So all I'm saying is we're taking on, as a government, whether it's federal, local, or state, we're taking on responsibilities that really should have been with the church and stay with the church, and the responsibility is with the church. That's all I'm saying.
100%. Okay. And before I pass to you, Miss Angela,
Angel.
Okay, Miss yes.
Miss
Respectfully.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's both.
Okay. 100% agree, and that is one of the points that has been presented to me in the complete analysis that I've been doing historically for the Black community. Every time there has been any type of insurrection in the states or in the country, any type of upheaval, it has the foundation has always been centered in the church. And unfortunately, the church is no longer a level playing field. And when you but you've experienced it too, Ms. Angela.
I know that's
right. And so basically, that's like when I'm talking about like where we are as a community, like, looking at all the generations, we have to be very honest and transparent of where we are so that we can get to where we need to go. And Malcolm X did say the most segregated hour in America is 11 o'clock. It's on Sunday. Absolutely. And so, but if the church is not, because we had Mr. Jennerbot here last week, and he was like, he was trying to go into the church, and they told him, well, we don't do politics here. Right, and so, but we should do community, and that's what I'm talking about. But Ms. Angela, when you have your friends and you tell a friend and you tell a friend, if you're saying like, I don't like how this is happening, but we understand the power of church, we understand the power of the indoctrination. I can go to a whole TED talk about it. But as a community, and which I'm asking these questions because I think these questions are very necessary for the next place in which we're getting ready to go as a country, and more specifically as a community. And if we have younger people on listening, and like younger people on my social media, if they're listening, if they're like, okay, Michaela, like I hear all that you're saying, like what can we really do? We can't all run for office. Clearly, I wish I could vote for both of y'all, but somebody has to win, but then from there, what more can we do? And so that's what I was asking. Okay, Miss Angela, you can go ahead now.
Well, there's a couple of you raised up some very good points. One of the things you talked about was the folks who don't have the two-parent households, who don't have the access to some of the things we're talking about. And it all ties into then what we talked about with the church, right? When I was a senior at Hampton University, my thesis, because we were required to do them, my thesis was actually on the socialization of African American youth. And what I did find, and that was, eons ago, the research has showed, and there is actually a there was a trifecta of how Black Americans were raised for a very long time. It was, in fact, the home, the church, and then the community/government, right? But that has shifted. And one of the things we have to acknowledge, and one of the things I will admit I think we do a not so great job of acknowledging, even here in Prince George's County, is that a lot of our families are struggling, right? And when we look at the cost of living, when we look at just all of the things, to keep a home, because most of the basic jobs here don't necessarily cover full cost of living, you have to work excess of 40 plus hours, and so then I sit in meetings as a single mom, which, when I went to the State House, one of the things people would say, like I said, I wrote around 30 bills every year. And people were like, why do you write so many bills? Why do you do so much work? Because I was like, because honestly, baby, I wasn't comfortable. Like I was still raising 5 children on my own on a county salary, which wasn't much. Okay. And so I was working because I was in the communities we were talking about, and I knew what we were talking about wasn't getting it done. Exactly. And so, and even as I go into this seat, I'm still raising 5 kids on my own. We might be a little bit better, but we still, that's hard.
I got you.
And so one of the things we talk about, when parents can't always, we villainize parents so quickly. We say, well, why do they show up at games, but they don't show up at PTA meetings? Well, games are at 7 p.m. Games, I can bring my other babies. Games, are you providing transportation and food and places for if they have younger kids where they can be provided for? Because every meeting I've ever had that. I can tell you, because I knew the struggles. And so one of the things as we as government, and in some ways, yes, I wish that as we as government did not have to take on so much, but when you sit in these seats,
And
you
see
have to
what's going
know that you do, because this is the mantle that you wear. This is why you are called into service. I wish I didn't have to, and I hope and I work with churches to see how we can get them funding to take care of some of the things of the community. But if they're not, if we don't, we see what's happening in the streets now because we took some of these programs out that provided for the kids that aren't college bound. What are they doing? They are running the streets. We aren't funding services for them to have after school programs. Then we're wondering why they're snatching purses. Like, there is a responsibility as government, and when you hold the power of the budget, when you hold the power of the pen, when you hold the power of the phone to pick up another elected official or an entity to say, what are you doing in our community? There is a responsibility to care for our community.
I love that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can we get 2 seats for y'all? I'm serious. Like,
Yeah.
when I say,
Yeah.
I've always known that the black woman is just gonna do her thing every time, and so that's my very favorite thing about me is I'm a black woman. So thank y'all for just picking up the mantle, So for sure,
Yeah,
and
this is going to be it. Yeah.
I don't envy anybody that has to vote.
But we've got to get the messages out.
We do.
And I
really think that the churches, you're listening, because I know some of my members are listening. We have to have some community forums.
Absolutely.
Y'all I love you, sweet children, love you dearly, but you dumb in terms of what impacts you most. I don't care where you go on this planet. Every society, whether you live in a democracy, a dictatorship, an aristocracy, whatever you live in, is based on family, education, government, economics, and religion. And the thing that impacts us most is the freaking government, and you don't know enough about it. Yeah. I'm glad I didn't say the bad word.
But Miss Angela, honestly, even if today, if all of the pastors was like, okay, we hear what you're saying, like we got you, let's do something. Unfortunately, my generation's not buying into it. The way that my generation has walked away from religion it should be studied.
But this is what I'm telling you. If you get our generation in there, we can take this information to our houses where you live.
Okay, well,
and we can have these conversations.
I love the passion. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. I love that for you.
Okay, we are on. We almost in 2 hours, and I'm telling you, you all are making this very challenging for me. You're making me want to start a petition to go after Calvin Hawkins' seat.
But I think this gives us hope, right?
Oftentimes, I do.
I feel for the first time a pessimist. I feel hope that the fact that we have 2, and not even 2. It was one other person that was really doing the big one on there, and I'm like,
but they were the top 2.
Yeah, they were my absolute favorite. Okay, 100%. Yes, but I think that definitely gives us hope that there are some good people who have the passion, who have the credentials, who have the
who care. How about that piece?
I like that. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll let y'all do y'all summary, because Fabian, I haven't seen him in the hallway yet, but I don't want to see him in the hallway.
I think the man gone, but I know how to close out.
Who wants to do their summary piece? But again, this is an August the 6th special election. I believe early voting starts next week.
Yes, July 31st, August 5th.
Yes, indeed. So go every day. I happen to be going to the Kentland Community Center, but go every day. Make sure you tag a neighbor. We have some, as you can see, some dynamite people on the ballot, and we ain't got a whole bunch of them. Even the person who is the incumbent who's chairing the council, not a fan right now, because she is the person. And I didn't stay for I testified on May 28th, but you had Prince George's Leadership Action Network folks all through that audience who came back and shared with me that she voted thumbs down on giving relief to the seniors in the county. Right. That's a problem for me. But anyway, I'm going to let these ladies give you their 90-second pitch for your vote. Because one of them will make it in. I just believe that.
That'll be all right. We riding out at dawn. I'm ready to fight.
Who's going first?
I guess I went first before, so Tam can go first.
So, as I said earlier, and first I want to thank Angela Taylor for having us today. This has been a great dialogue and conversation, and I was surprised. Didn't know we were going to have a guest host as well, and so thank you so much. But as I said before, I'm the only candidate that has been laser focused for the past 20-something years on land use and development, which is a big issue in the county. It's, like I said, one of the things that the county council sits on is the district council is zoning matters. And I don't know anyone, no one has been in my class because we were the first cohort of the planning academy from Maryland National Park and Planning. But that has been a juggernaut and a big issue in our county, and why we're not progressing as we should. And so I feel like my experience advocating and being successful, I'll give one small example. In Hyde Field in Clinton, Maryland, the developer wanted to put up some apartments in addition to townhomes, and we said absolutely not. And we have won that battle. And so, you know, as an advocate, I can tick off some successes that we have had in
I
the
already
land
know.
use.
I already got it from Pat Monroe Brown.
Yes,
I already got it.
Got it. So, if you want to hear him, ask Miss Angela Taylor. She'll tell you. But I have been an advocate, and I can continue to be a social engineer, as was instilled in us at Howard University School of Law. I'm going to continue to say that because I took it to heart. I specialize in wireless telecommunications. I do my work for the Federal Communications Commission. It has absolutely nothing to do with any of county level government, but I took it upon myself to be a social engineer and be an advocate and use my legal skills to say, hey, this is what this bill is really saying. This is what the legal language means. Let me actually give you the you can go read it for yourself if you don't believe me. This is what we're going to do. And so I want to be able to be that voice for you on the county council to tell you, this is our agenda. This is what we're voting on. This is how it's going to impact you. This is how I'm leaning towards voting. But what do you say? We don't get enough of that. And again, I said this earlier, if we're going to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, shouldn't the people have a voice?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Vote Tamara Davis Brown, at-large candidate county council district on August 6th. July 31st through August 5th is early voting. Thank you, Ms. Angela. Thank you for having us today.
Right. Not a problem at all. See what I can do to get both of y'all back here, because we need to know what the council does. Okay. Go ahead, Miss Angel.
Absolutely. Thank you from one Angela to another.
I was going to say thank you, namesake.
I'll take that. And thank you, Michaela and Tam. It's always good to sit with fellow, HU love, and really respect as the work that she's done in the county, and respect all of the candidates that are on this ballot. This is a hard choice for the people of Prince George's County. I do believe that I am the best candidate for this seat. It's 2 years, and so we need someone that's ready to go from day one. I'm the only candidate on the ballot. I've worked at every level of government, from federal to state to local. I also have experience both on the county council, analyzing bills, understanding the processes. I worked under the county executive as legislative counsel for the Department of Environment, so I know all of the inner workings of how the departments work together, and quite frankly, how they don't work together. I will admit, I am a parent of a special needs child in Prince George's County Public Schools. While it's not my only issue, I am definitively going there to address the inadequacies that are happening within our school system, and to use the power of this office to really bring that home, and to have the discussions and make the necessary amends that need to happen, so that all of the children of Prince George's County are receiving a top quality education. I am also committed to expanding the housing credit for our seniors and making sure that we are bringing good development to this county. I believe that we can reinstall the principles, what drove us to be the #1 county for Black America, that drove us to where, and I always joke, when I used to work for the county, we heard gorgeous Prince George's everywhere. And there was a point where it was like, and I was like, I know, no. But at this point, we need to get back to gorgeous Prince George's, where this county is one of the number one places to be, not just in the state, but in the country and in the world. And that's what I'm committed to do as your county council member at large. Vote Angela Angel. We say the website is www.angelaforall. You can find out your polling locations, because it's not everywhere that you think that you usually go. And you can also find out where to early vote. Early vote, most people go to Sports and Learning. Sports and Learning is not an early vote location. And they're all schools, which was another surprising. In the same places.
Kentland is early vote.
No, it's not.
No,
It's not.
When I heard you said that, I was
heard you
actually
say
gonna
that. I was thinking,
What?
Yeah, I was
No,
thinking,
I
they're-
have that on a list.
No,
No.
it's only
It's
nine schools.
It's nine schools.
Oh.
And in Laurel, there's only you can go to www.angelaforall.com and click on GOTV. It will give you all of the sites. It will give you all of where you can drop your ballot box. The ballot boxes where you can drop off your ballots, because that's another thing that's important that you should be knowing. Where you usually go is not, in fact, where you need to go.
Yes.
Like I've done.
Somebody trying to steer me in the wrong direction.
Yep.
Like I've done since I've been, and this isn't a thing that I'm telling you I'm going to do. It's something that I've done and I will continue to do, is to make sure you, the public, are informed, engaged, and empowered. Vote Angela Angel for County Council at Large. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. Give me that. Give me you again.
Angela for All, spelled out ANGELAFORALL. And if you just go under the GOTV tab, it'll tell you, there's a link. It tells you where all the locations are and where you can.
Thank you for checking me in real time. I wish
Yeah, I
did
didn't.
earlier.
I didn't want to correct you, but I was like,
Oh no! Correct me.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I heard you say that, I was like, I hope she
Yeah.
doesn't think that she can go to
Kentland.
Kentland
Yeah, I
every
was
day. Yeah. No.
Because that's on my list of places. I
No,
have
they-
12, a list of 12 polling places, and Kentland's on it.
Oh no, because
Yeah.
they cut it down to 9.
No, it's only 9. It's 1 in each council matter district, and I also have it on my website. I forgot to give that. And I'd like
Yeah.
to give that.
Yeah.
It's just my name altogether.
I got yours.
TamaraDavisBrown.org. It has voting information. You click on that. It actually takes you to the Board of Elections, to the site where the 9 voting sites are. They like she said, they are in all schools, but there are going to be 39 drop box
Boxes. That's
locations
even more critical.
that are also available. So every person, if you are a registered voter, you will get a ballot in the mail. They should be coming pretty soon, today, tomorrow, over the weekend, because they went out supposedly on Monday or Tuesday. So every registered voter, Maryland is a closed primary state. So
It
if
is.
you're not a registered voter,
A registered Democrat.
excuse me, if you're not a registered Democrat or a registered Republican, you will not get a ballot, because only registered Republicans and Democrats are running for this seat. There are other parties, but there are no other parties that is acknowledged by Maryland that has a candidate that's running. So this is a primary election. So
Right.
you will, the Board of Elections, State Board of Election will mail every registered Democrat and every registered Republican a ballot. The ballot for the Republicans will have their 4 candidates,
Right.
and the ballot for the Democrats will have the 7 of us. And
Exactly.
so, yes, so
Yeah,
that's,
we should know what a closed primary state is on this show, shouldn't we?
right.
But thank you for that. Anytime you sitting in the studio with me and you hear me do something that's not right, check me on the spot, because I will check a Negro in a minute. I will do that. Okay.
We love facts.
Yeah, I don't like to give out bad information, because that's a big problem that we just have.
Yeah.
Period. I don't do bad information.
Yeah.
So
Appreciate that.
with that, take
Oh,
it away, Eminem.
All right.
Hear folks in the hallway now.
Is he coming?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Actually, I know how to do it. I got you. Awesome. Thank you, ladies, definitely for taking time to come out here and to, lend your voices. Thank you for, even taking up the challenge to even run for office. And thank you for your journeys that got you here. I'm a very big proponent of your of individuals' journeys for sure. And so, thank you, Miss Angela, for always being down for the cause. We love that for us. but before we close today, know that there's a lot of value in our broadcast. Please go to youtube.com/@AngelaTaylor4119 and hit the live tab. Make a like and subscribe. Make it a point to take time to review the broadcast. Share with your friends. No one is going to save us but us. So with that being said, we need you to count your blessings instead of your crosses. Count your gains instead of your losses. Count your joys instead of your woes. Count your friends instead of your foes. Count your smiles instead of your tears. Count your courage instead of your fears. Count your full years instead of your lean. Count your kind deeds instead of your mean. Count your health instead of your wealth. And by all means, count on God instead of yourself. We have 102 days, 8 hours, 59 minutes, and 4 seconds to the next election. This is Eminem, and I'm out.
Okay, this is at We the People. We truly believe that there is good in the world. And we challenge each and every one of you to go out there and be the good.